Granborough back with some Grand Tactician Civil War. Got a Union campaign going on here in version 1.07. And I want to mention right at the beginning here, there's going to be a fair amount of Army reorganization going on in this episode. That's coming a little bit later, but just wanted to mention that at the beginning. Stay tuned for those who like that sort of thing. And I know many of you do, so I'm going to show it. First, though, I want to talk just a little bit about forts. Just a little bit, and that is because, got a comment, in a previous episode, we took Fort Norfolk here at Norfolk, Virginia, and got a comment asking, hey, don't you have to put some artillery in that fort? The answer to that is no, I don't. Forts have an organic artillery of their own that cannot be moved. And they're heavy, at least some of it is heavy artillery. On pre-existing forts, campaign start forts, you get this icon here, right? When you hover over the fort, that is separate from this blue NATO symbol icon. That reflects the garrison. This thing is the building icon for the fort itself. And all the campaign start forts have this. If you click on that, this is the little window where you can upgrade the fort to a higher tier. It's insanely expensive. It would cost $34 million to make this a tier 3 fort. But this is where you can see what kind of artillery the fort has. And Fort Norfolk has got some 8-inch mortars, some 8-inch cannons, some 10-inch cannons, some 32-pounder cannon, and some 42-pounder rifles. Our Fort Monroe is another tier 2 pre-existing fort. Has got the same thing. Okay? And those guns cannot be moved. Right? You can't transfer those to your armies. Some forts, a few, start with an additional artillery battalion in them. Let me see if I can find one. Okay, so here's an example. Fort Taylor down in the Florida Keys, right? So there's this unit here, and there is an organic minimal garrison right here that just goes with the commander. Even if this artillery battalion were not here, there'd be a few men here. Okay, so but there is a separate artillery battalion here, and they've got 6-pounder field guns. They did not start the campaign with 6-pounder field guns. I think there were Napoleons here. I didn't see any particular reason to think that the CSA was going to come take Fort Taylor. And even if they did, I didn't care that much about it. So I stripped the Napoleons out and replaced them with 6-pounder field guns. However, this isn't the only artillery that Fort Taylor has. Fort Taylor's got the same thing. 10-inch mortars, 8-inch cannons, 32-pounder cannon, 42-pounder rifles. Okay, so even if I took that artillery battalion out entirely, there would still be plenty of guns at Fort Taylor. And all the pre-existing forts have this. Let's look at a campaign start tier 1 fort. And I think the only... let's see. The only one that we have like that is the recently captured Fort Hyman. Okay, so the tier 1 forts have 10 64-pounder rifles and 10 32-pounder cannon. All right, always going to have that. Interestingly, when the player, or the AI for that matter, I assume, AI rarely builds forts, at least in a 61 start. A fort that is built during the campaign, such as this one here that Grant built at Nashville. This is Fort Beauregard. I had tried changing the name, but I can only change the name of the garrison. I couldn't change the name of the actual fort, so I just changed it back. Fort Beauregard it is. Built forts during the campaign don't have that icon. So I can't similarly click on Fort Beauregard and get that same panel. And what that also means is, as far as I don't know if this is intended or if this is an oversight, but a fort built during the campaign, apparently, as far as I can tell, cannot be upgraded beyond Tier 1. Because the display, the window to do that, isn't available. As a matter of fact, I don't even know for sure. I can't show on screen that Fort Beauregard is in fact a Tier 1 fort at all. One would have to assume that it is. I don't see any other possibility. But Fort Beauregard should have that same thing. It should be a Tier 1 fort and have those same 20 cannon. I am proceeding under the assumption that that is the case. And you can see here, there's a total of 1280 in the garrison. But there's only 1244 actually in this infantry brigade. Those few other guys are actually the fort's organic few garrisons. So even if I move this brigade elsewhere, there'd still be a few guys here who would be manning those 20 guns. Okay. Anyway, I just got that comment, so I thought it was worth kind of going over the fort thing. All right. During a recent episode, briefly saw the message or the little icon float up past here on the left. All of our Springfields, our second big batch of 50,000 Springfields was delivered. Went back through all the armies. Doled out some more Springfield rifle muskets. I did have a few units out there with just Springfield muskets, and there was one actually in the last battle, and that's because I had run out of the Springfield rifle muskets earlier. And so all those units are now caught up as far as being armed with rifles. Okay. I want to quickly go over the theater situations, and the astute may have noticed this already. Over here in Missouri, there hasn't been much action. Nathaniel Lyons Missouri Corps has come down to Springfield, has built his supply depot. Should be in pretty good, yeah, he's in good supply situation again. But we had lost sight of the Missouri State Guard. Okay. So there's good news and bad news about the Missouri State Guard. The bad news is they have been substantially reinforced and are now about 14,000 troops. The good news, at least good news for Nathaniel Lyon, is the Missouri State Guard has come over here. They've come into Tennessee. Now that's bad news for Isaac Stevens, which, oh, by the way, when they showed up over here, apparently Isaac Stevens withdrew a little bit. And he's come up here back up closer to Cairo. And that may have been a reasonable thing for him to do at the time. He's a little bit bigger now. He's got a couple more infantry brigades. He's now up to, or soon will be, up to 16,000 men. Well, if the Missouri State Guard is here, I have no indication that there are any Confederate forces anywhere in Arkansas, and there are 3 valuable cities here. There's Carrollton, there's Fort Smith, and there's Little Rock, and there is a Tier 1 fort at Fort Smith, but other than that, I don't think there's anything preventing Nathaniel Lyon from walking into Arkansas. And beyond the value of these 3 cities on their own, what else that does is that gets Lyon onto the Arkansas River, which can potentially bring him down to the Mississippi below Memphis. I think that strategically, positionally, is something worth pursuing. Now, there may be another force over here, and once he starts moving, there probably will be, even if there isn't a force here now, there probably will be a force that is either moved to Arkansas or is formed in Arkansas. But I think the time has come for the Missouri Force, currently called the Missouri Corps, to become a little bit more active, and he may get a few more troops since now he's not going to strictly be a defending force. Not moving him yet. And as already seen, the Confederates are bringing even more forces into Tennessee. All right. Now these armies over here that were that had kind of stopped Isaac Stevens from crossing the Tennessee River and starting to besiege these 2 forts, they've moved. They joined this attack on Grant over here, but now we've got the 14,000-man Missouri State Guard. So there are now 1, 2, 3. There's a 4th in here, not in vision. Well, they're hidden right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Confederate armies in Tennessee. Okay, so we're going to have to do something about that. And we are, pretty soon. Cadwalader building his supply depot here. Not in vision right now, but I don't have any reason to think that the Army of West Tennessee isn't still at Knoxville. As soon as he gets his supply depot built, he's going to start heading down into this valley and see what's up in this area. It's valuable to capture this city, but the main reason for doing this is the Confederacy's only iron mine right here. A Union Knoxville means a Union iron mine. And we've got other iron mines, but the Confederacy will then have 0. There's also a foundry here, I think, or an ironworks. So that's good too. McClellan's Appalachian Corps is at Louisville and has now received his additional units. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to send him down the Ohio River to Cairo. River movement enabled. And then things are continuing pretty much as they have been in Virginia. Still building our new supply depot that we had to build because the Confederates burned down our old one. And still building a fort here at Winchester. Army of Pennsylvania recovering readiness in West Virginia territory. And we've got this one brigade that I split out from Fort Monroe. It was a Fort Monroe brigade just because of readiness reasons. And they are slowly capturing the city of Norfolk, Virginia. And so this little Army of the James, that's extremely temporary. And as soon as this city is captured, I'm just going to pop this brigade back over into Fort Monroe. The absence of this brigade is why this fort is showing the little skull and crossbones attrition symbol. I have noticed that even though a fort has a small organic garrison, that the pre-existing forts, if they start the campaign with a unit inside them, as Fort Monroe did, if you move that unit out, they go into this attrition mode, even though there's a few guys there. Only 10. So, and that's why earlier when I showed the artillery unit down at the Key West fort, that's why I only took the guns out. I did not move that artillery battalion for that reason. So as soon as he's done, he's going to pop back to Fort Monroe. And that's kind of the theater situation. All right. Let's talk about projects, because we got a lot of projects available, including a couple that we've been looking for. They are sorted here by subsidy type. I'm not really looking for anything in the political realm. We recently spent economic subsidies on a level of market reform. In agriculture, yes, we finally have farm mechanization available. And let me kind of make this distinction right here. Recruitment offices, we have taken 2 levels of that. Okay? And recruitment offices 2, number of available volunteers plus 10%. That's at 2 levels. Alright, so each level of recruitment office provides 5% additional volunteers to the manpower pool. Farm mechanization, in addition to improving crops output at all the farms, we take this thing, Farm Mech 1, crops, production, and number of volunteers plus 10% plus 10%. So 1 level of farm mechanization gives you as much volunteer boost as 2 levels of recruitment offices. I thought that was worth pointing out. Okay, what else we got here? Yep, we're working on some more industry subsidies in order to take another level of one of these 2. I'm working on these 2 kind of back and forth equally. Not taking any of these for now. And that leaves military subsidies, and we have a whole bunch available. All kinds of stuff I would like to get here. There's Sharps rifles, there's machine guns, there's Parrott rifles. Even cast artillery would be a good one, and a fairly cheap one at that. I'll now just quickly mention, I did not take cast artillery in this playthrough. Mainly because I just wanted to do something a little bit different from what I've done in past playthroughs. Cast artillery is actually a pretty darn good project. It gets you the Napoleons, which are probably, I'm not going to say definitely, but I'll say arguably the best smoothbore artillery in the game. And you also get the James rifle. So there is both a smoothbore and a rifled artillery in this pretty cheap project, and these guns are not all that terribly expensive to produce. I think it is perfectly viable to do an entire playthrough and just take cast artillery and leave it, and not worry about any other, and just go with Napoleons and Jameses. And I did that in a previous campaign. The one downside to doing that, though, is that this James rifle, it is a rifled artillery piece. However, it is not long ranged. It is the James rifle is roughly in the same range ballpark as the Napoleon is. So you're getting the benefit of rifled artillery accuracy. The James rifle is accurate, but you're not getting a range advantage, right? So the James rifle is a little bit of a hybrid. You could say it one way or the other. In effect, from a tactical perspective, you're basically getting a smoothbore capability that happens to be very accurate. All right, so it's kind of like a super accurate Napoleon, I guess one could say. Anyway, not taking this. As I've said multiple times, what I've been saving for is organization reform. Taking that. In diplomacy subsidies, as I've also mentioned, the goal there is British rifles, and we're getting pretty close to that now. Not quite there yet. We have another 700K to go, and that should be probably about 3 weeks, mid-April or so. And that's going to get us infield muskets, rifle muskets, to further supplement our infantry arms. Infield musketoons for the cav, which is very good because I don't have any other decent cav weapons. Infield musketoons is going to give us a long-ranged, for cavalry, accurate weapon, but it's relatively slow firing. All right, this is essentially going to give us an infantry-like weapon for the cav, and will be suitable for dismounted use, and using them more as kind of like mounted infantry rather than true cavalry. And we'll also get the Whitworth rifle, which is very long ranged and very accurate, although with a very slow rate of fire. Okay. So, time to form some proper armies with army HQs and corps, and there's going to be some officers shuffling around, and there's going to be some renaming going on, and it's going to take a little while to do. I do have kind of a plan for how I'm going to do that, so it's not going to be like an hour or anything. But I'm going to go ahead and record all of that because I know that a lot of viewers like to watch that. And in the past, every time I've kind of glossed over that sort of thing, I almost invariably get a comment saying, hey, I wanted to see that. So I'm going to record it. It's going to be chaptered here. So for those who don't care to see that, go ahead and skip ahead. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we've got 3 armies in the Eastern Theater here. And these are really core size units. As a matter of fact, now that I've taken organization reform, we can see that the Army of the Rappahannock is now reflected here as a core sized unit. Okay, so we need to make an army here. This is just a name now. This is a corps. And there's a couple of different ways to do this, and so I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to do it one way here in the east, and then I'm going to do it a slightly different method over in the west. And they both work perfectly fine. It's just, just to show the 2 slightly different ways to do it. So the way I'm going to do it here is I am going to create a completely separate Army HQ, and then I'm going to place each one of these 3 corps under it. But the first thing I want to do is make sure I've got a commander for that Army HQ. I don't want to, I don't have to. I could pick anybody, but I just like the idea of one of these 3 commanders becoming the overall army commander. And let's see, so we've got Winfield Scott. Let's have a look at him. Pretty competitive. He's got 5 stars of fame. If we just total up all of his stars, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. He's got 10 stars among the 4 attributes, and then he's also got 5 stars of fame. So okay, so he's a 15-star guy. with fame being a little bit different from the other 4. How about McDowell? Also pretty competitive. He's got 11 stars among the 4 attributes and 4 stars of fame. And then we've got George Thomas, 11 stars and 4 stars of fame. So any one of these guys would be fine. I think I like the idea of old Winfield Scott commanding the field army in... not Banks. Went too far. I think I like... Where is he? There he is. I like the idea of Winfield Scott. Okay? So, but I want to replace him here. So I want him available for that Army HQ. And I think old Erasmus Keyes is looking pretty good for command of the what is still at the moment called the Army of the Rappahannock. So I am going in, which means I need to get Keyes out of this division command. I think Israel Richardson deserves a division command. So first things first, let's get Richardson available. Let's find a colonel for that brigade. Let's try to find, sort by leadership. Starting to run a little thin. I think McDowell is all right. This is actually a demotion for McDowell. McDowell was in command of that 4th Division in Grant's Army that got themselves all tired out in the last, but I replaced him with somebody else. But I think he'll be okay in a brigade command. So we're going to send McDowell to take command of Richardson's division. We're going to send Richardson to replace Erasmus Keyes in command of this division, which leaves Keyes available to relieve Scott. That is going to bump Keyes 2 ranks, and so he may take a hit to his stats, but he'll get them back. He'll be fine. Okay. So now we can create an Army HQ right here. Recruit a new army. This button. And I want them close, so I will put them. I'll put this. We'll just make it in the District of Columbia. It doesn't get closer than that. I cannot put it in Virginia because Virginia is a Confederate state. So even in the Union-occupied areas, I cannot create a Army HQ. If there were sufficient support in Virginia for the Union, I probably could. For example, in some of the other border states like Missouri or Kentucky, even if the other side owns that state, if you've got sufficient support, sometimes you can. But not in this case. So I'm going to create the HQ in the District of Columbia. Here we go. Army of Washington, and for some reason I would have thought it would just pull Winfield Scott directly in there. Did not. So there we go. So now I need to get those cores in there. We do that using the transfer button here. So the Army of the Chesapeake under McDowell. Just drag it over. Boom, there's one corps. The Army of Pennsylvania under Thomas. Just drag it over, put it under Scott. There's 2 corps. And the Army of the Rappahannock. Now under Keys. Oops. Just scroll this over so I have Scott visible. There we go. There we go. And there we go. Army of Washington. Well, it's not going to stay the Army of Washington. And okay, so I did this a few episodes ago where I got tired of the duplicative names and there's 2 armies of the Potomac. So I've been trying for a few episodes here. I'm just going to give them different names, even if they're ahistorical. I didn't like doing that. It was an experiment. I didn't like it. So, yeah. Especially now that it's a grand army with multiple corps in it. Yeah, this is going to be the Army of the Potomac. It's just the way I want to do it. It just seems right. Okay. Army of the Chesapeake is now the 1st Corps. Army of Pennsylvania is now the 2nd Corps. Army of the Rappahannock. I'm sure you can guess what they are going to be. Now, 3rd Corps. Okay. So that is suitcased. I'm still not quite sure what I want to do with that little cavalry force. I think I'm going to go ahead and fold them in as well. And that would be the East Scouting Force. When I say I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them, I'm sure I want to incorporate them into the Army of the Potomac. What I'm not sure of is, do I want to keep them as a completely independent cavalry corps? Or do I want these cav divisions working directly for Winfield Scott without a corps commander in between them? And I think the answer is I'm going to leave them as I'm going to leave them as is. So we're going to put the East Scouting Force in the Army of Potomac as well. And now that they've got bigger units, it's really kind of more of a proper cav corps now than a strictly scouting force. I'm going to go ahead and call this the 1st Cavalry Corps. I mean, it's not really. It's just a few brigades, but it's a corps level command, right? Morgan is reporting directly to Scott, and he is basically co-equal, at least in the hierarchy, with the main corps commanders. So, 1st Cav Corps it is. Okay. So if we click on Army of the Potomac, we can see that the command radius of the Army HQ unit is much larger than it is for the corps commanders. And that means that any of these corps within Scott's command radius, they can reinforce each other from much, much further distances away than they could otherwise. Okay, so that is probably the biggest reason for doing this, but it is not the only reason. Another reason is, notice that Scott has got a perk slot. Okay, the Army HQs have the same 3 perk slots available to them that the Corps units do. So eventually, each one of these corps will be operating with the benefit of up to 6 different perks instead of just their own 3. So that is a major reason to go to the Army organization. You just get a lot more perks working for the corps. Another reason is, notice here that Key's 3rd Corps now has another morale recovery buff icon in range. This unit is within command range of the Army commander and will reinforce any battles within that range. Okay, he didn't have this before Winfield Scott's HQ unit was stood up. And if we look at his morale tooltip, we can see there, kind of in the middle, there is an in-range bonus of plus 9.6%, which is pretty hefty. So corps within an Army Corps structure like this recover their morale faster. Hopefully that will help out George Thomas here. Now, as I've talked about before, terrain can block out command radius. And so these 2 corps over here, well, these 3 corps, if I include the cavalry, they're not getting, they're still not able to reinforce right now because there's mountains in the way. However, if I'm not mistaken, they do still get the range bonus for being within range. So they are still getting their morale buff, even though they wouldn't be able to reinforce 3rd Corps. So there's a few different benefits there. One other benefit is just stats. Okay, these brigade commanders, you know, they are influenced by their chain of command. And so, like, initiative, leadership, admin, and cunning, those attributes from their division, corps, and army commanders, they trickle down. And so now the brigade commanders have got the influence of 3 generals senior to them trickling down to improve their stats, whereas before they only had 2, the corps, or what were then army commanders, and the division commanders. So you get more stat trickle down in the Army Corps organization as well. So there's 4 major reasons for the benefits of going to the Army Corps structure. Only one of those 4 benefits is specifically tied to having multiple corps in a command. The perk slots, the stat trickle down, and the in-range morale recovery buff, those all pertain to subordinate units, even if there's only 1 corps in the Army. So for that reason, I think it's beneficial to set up an Army HQ even for these smaller forces in outlying areas where there's only 1 corps. It's still worthwhile to do, and I'm going to do that as well. Okay, so we've got the Army of the Potomac set up. And so the other way to do this, slightly different way, we'll do it here with Grant's Army. So instead of creating a separate Army HQ and dragging all the corps in, the other way to do it is on this button. Over here on the right, we've got upgrade corps to Army. If I pop this, boom. Now, Grant is no longer a corps commander, he is an Army commander. And this is an Army now. Now, it's an Army with a bunch of divisions in it. There's no corps level, right? All these other guys, they did not automatically promote to corps commanders. But if you've got a force in place, you like the commander, and that's where you want the Army HQ to be, you can do it this way. And a lot of folks will even just keep the forces just as they are and have the Army commander functioning as a corps commander as well, and this is a de facto corps. I personally don't like to do it that way, but that is strictly just personal preference. You know, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Okay, so we've got Grant in command now, and similar to what I did over in the East, I am just not liking this Army of the Ohio. Although that is a historical name. There was an Army of the Ohio. But it just has to be the Army of the Tennessee for me. And yeah, there's a Confederate Army of Tennessee. Also historical. Yeah, so whatever. Okay, however, I don't want to leave Grant in direct command of all these divisions. I am going to set up a separate corps for... I'm going to set up a couple of corps here. And let's see here. I don't know if any of these... I don't know if I'm super happy with any of these existing division commanders bumping up. Sumner would be okay. Prentice, meh. Hamilton would be alright. It is a historical figure, right? This is a real guy, and he was a pretty good general, too. It's just there's no picture. It bugs me. I guess there wasn't one available. There's a few officers in the game like that. I could go with Hamilton, though. But somewhere in the armies, somewhere, let me go back and find them. I think William Sherman has developed enough in division command. I think it's time to bring him up to corps command, and of course, a corps under Grant in the West would be the natural place for him. And I think John Reynolds is a perfect candidate to take over Sherman's division here. So let's replace Reynolds. In brigade command. Yuck. Slightly yes, yuck. Dutton will do. I think Dutton's all right there. Okay, so Reynolds is available for 1st Division, McDowell's Corps. That's going to give Grant 1 corps commander. Who else over here in the East might be a good candidate? Wilcox would be good. Kind of like Wilcox staying east, though. You know what? Buried somewhere in one of these smaller corps, I think I've got Joe Hooker. I've also got Rosecrans. Let's see if I can find where I put Joe Hooker. There he is. he hasn't really developed. Well, he's got 3 stars in leadership and administration. I don't think he's going to lose that much in stats as a West Pointer. Let's bring Joe Hooker over to the Army of the Tennessee. I like Hooker. Kind of feel like he. I think Totten's fine for that brigade. Okay. All right, so let's create 2 corps here. He keeps trying to give me dicks. Okay. That is William Sherman, yes. And where's Hooker? There he is. And Hooker, best known for his service in the Army of the Potomac earlier and into the middle of the war, including command of the Army of the Potomac, where things didn't go entirely his way. But he did wind up serving in the West after that as well, and quite well, I think, as in Corps Command in the West. I don't remember if it was in the later Army of the Tennessee or maybe it was in the Army of the Cumberland. So Hooker being in the Western Army is fine. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is let's give the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Division to Hooker. Basically, we're just going to wholesale bring these guys over like so. 4th Division, I'm going to put that in Sherman's command. We'll bring this artillery division to Hooker. And we'll give one of the cav divisions to Hooker and the other cav division to Sherman. Okay, so now we need to get some more infantry for Sherman. And some artillery as well. I think I've got some new units in the Western Department ready to go. So they're still not fully formed and named, and they don't have weapons, but we've got plenty of rifles now. So I am going to cut for just a second and rename all these. Okay, so I'm going to create 3 more divisional commands under Sherman there. We've got the 59th Brigade of California troops and the 60th Brigade from Ohio. And they're going to go into this division. '61st and 62nd from Iowa and Illinois. I'm saving these brigades for something else. Potentially. We'll see. And then I've got 3 artillery battalions ready to go. The 34th, 35th, and 36th. And these are all armed with wires to form an artillery division for Sherman's Corps. Oh, okay. I thought that that would send Army of the Tennessee to the end of the queue, but because I upgraded a corps directly to an army, kind of kept his spot, I guess. All right. So I'm just gonna move these around a second just to kind of get them in order. We'll move White's brigade here. Okay. Alright, so Sherman's Corps is a little bit smaller. A little bit. He's got 7 brigades instead of 9. And he needs a little bit more smoothbore artillery. But this is a proper force. Hooker, 16,500 men. Sherman, well, actually, his units are a little bigger, so they're roughly the same. And Grant has got an army of 33,500. Which actually isn't that much bigger to what he went into the last battle with. However, took 4,000 casualties there, so... and because Grant was in Nashville, and I upgraded him to Army Commander, and then I formed these corps underneath him. Both of these corps will be sitting right there at Nashville with him. Oh, and the other thing I need to do is we need to get the West Scouting Force into this army. Under Fremont. And they shall be called the 2nd Cavalry Corps. Nope, that's not right. So I've never actually organized this way before, or if I did it a very long time ago. But I kind of like the idea of, so each corps commander has got some organic cavalry, a brigade apiece, and we also have a separate cavalry force reporting directly to the Army commander. And what anyway, we'll just see how all that works out. One thing I could do is take away the corps level command and have these divisions of cavalry working directly for Grant or for Scott in the other theater. And I think that that would be a good way to do it, because when one goes into a tactical battle, the army commander is almost always present. I don't remember many cases where they were not. I've seen sometimes for the AI they haven't been, but my army commander almost always shows up at the beginning of a tactical battle, which kind of means regardless of which corps initially makes contact, the fact that Grant is there, having a couple extra cav brigades for scouting early on, would be pretty beneficial. But I'm going to try it this way too, because I like the idea of having the separate cav-focused unit on the campaign map for scouting and visibility at that level as well. So we're going to leave it the way it is. Okay, so the two main armies are now fixed up. Going to make another army here. And I'm going to do it the other way. I am going to put the Cumberland Corps and the Appalachian Corps, which is headed down to Cairo. Going to make that a new army. I'm going to do it the other way, and I am going to form it in Illinois. Keeps trying to give me Dix. Who do we have available here? I don't want John Dix. I could see myself putting Patterson back in command of that if he weren't defamed. He's still defamed, so I'm not going to do that. Let's look at the... I mean, this is... Initially, this was just kind of a go beat up some forts thing. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put... I'm going to go ahead and go with McClellan. I don't like the idea of promoting John Pope to command of this corps. Let's go with Samuel Curtis, which means I need a division commander here, and I think that's going to be Rosecrans. Morris could do it. Let's go with Rosecrans. So I need another brigade commander here. I think Andrew Humphreys is fine. Okay. Army HQ in Illinois under McClellan as desired. I'm going to call this the Army of the Mississippi. I'm going to put the Cumberland Corps and the Appalachian Corps, if I can find it. Forgot to rename these. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3 in the Army of the Potomac, so Hooker is going to command the 4th Corps, and Sherman the 5th. Fremont 2nd Cav Corps, yep. This is duplicative because I didn't exit out earlier. Let me take care of that. Where did it put? Okay. Let's just move McClellan's HQ unit down to Cairo. Using whatever method you would like to get there. So Stevens is going to have the 6th Corps. And Curtis the 2nd. Excuse me, 7th. So this is turning into a fairly substantial force that will keep working on the... Shit, it's almost as big as Grant's army now. Okay. That leaves the Kanawha Corps and the Missouri Corps. And I'm going to redo those as well, but I think y'all have gotten the idea on the reorganization. These are smaller forces, so I'm just going to cut and get these guys fixed up. Okay, so here is the summary of the Army reorganization. We've got several armies now instead of the scattered corps-sized smaller armies. Just going in the order that they scroll. Way out in Missouri, we've got the Army of the Missouri under Lyon's command, consisting of the 8th Corps under James Steedman. The size of this force hasn't changed as far as the troop organization. At Nashville, under the command of Ulysses Grant, is the Army of the Tennessee. Yeah, for those who skipped ahead, I've gone back to some of the historical names. I didn't like splitting them out. Consisting of the 4th and 5th Corps. The 4th Corps is pretty much Grant's army as it was before under Joseph Hooker. And then William Sherman has got the 5th Corps, which has some of the pre-existing troops from Grant's old army, and then also some more new brigades coming from the recruiting command. I've also incorporated the West Scouting Force as the 2nd Cavalry Corps, also under Grant. All these forces are at Nashville and will continue fighting the war in that vicinity, of which there has been quite a bit, and there no doubt will be more. Cadwallader's force, the old Kanawha Corps, is now the Army of the Kanawha, with Cadwallader in command and Stephen Hurlbut commanding the 9th Corps. This is the force that is building a supply depot and will soon be moving into the Appalachian Valley to threaten Knoxville. This is just the one brigade that is currently capturing Norfolk. As soon as that job is done, they're going to pop right back into their fort garrison. So this is temporary, the Norfolk Expedition. And then finally in the Eastern Theater, not finally, there's a couple more after that, but the Army of the Potomac, under the command of Winfield Scott, the 1st Division, under Irvin McDowell, the 1st Corps, the 2nd Corps under George Thomas, and the 3rd Corps under Erasmus Keyes. And this is the old Chesapeake Army, actually at Winchester. Thomas's 2nd Corps is the old Army of Pennsylvania, recovering readiness at Harper's Ferry. And Keyes' 3rd Corps, the old Army of the Rappahannock, currently building a supply depot in the vicinity of Manassas, Virginia. And then the old East Scouting Force, that CAV, is now the 1st Cavalry Corps, also within the Army of the Potomac, reporting to Winfield Scott. Newly formed force, I took Isaac Stevens' Cumberland Corps and McClellan's Appalachian Corps, combined them together into the Army of the Mississippi under George McClellan, whose headquarters is moving to Cairo, Illinois. Isaac Stevens is commanding the 6th Corps, and Samuel Curtis is commanding the 7th Corps. This is Stevens' old force, and this is McClellan's old force. And this is actually kind of turning into a substantial army. McClellan's got 30,000 men here. This force is going to continue working on Fort Henry and Donelson, and then we'll be making some moves probably toward Memphis after that. And then finally, the recruiting commands, the East and West departments, they remain right where they are and are not going to move. The East Department is at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the West Department is in Indiana, just across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. So they're staying where they are, but just organizationally, I've placed them under an Army HQ, Henry Halleck. And Halleck himself, he's just sitting at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. These are the old departments, which still have their old names. Buell's Eastern Department and Canby's Western Department, and they're not moving, so they're not within range. But I just did this because it just seemed like the thing to do. The Western Department is smaller because I took a lot of forces from this department to form William Sherman's 5th Corps. And you can see I've got a lot of recently recruited units in both departments now that are available either to go as replacements to the armies or possibly form even some more forces. We'll just have to see how all that pans out. But I've got a lot of troops in reserve. They haven't been named yet, right? They still have the generic names, and they've all got mixed muskets and that sort of thing. But we do have manpower essentially in place now, and the overall size of the military is just about 200,000. As I've mentioned before, though, I got a lot of troops back here in the what is this? Got about 36,000 men back here, not even formally fielded to the fighting armies. And we've got 9 corps out there fielded. I've recruited enough units in this game where prior to 1.07, this would be up at least to 250,000 by now, maybe a little bit higher. And that brings me right back to a point that I've made several times in this series, and I'm making it again. Attrition is a bigger deal than it used to be. The return to service rate is not compensating for combined casualties and attrition the way it used to. Basically, the return to service is so far in this campaign, the return to service amount is basically compensating for our battle casualties, but it's not accounting for attrition hardly at all. And so, yeah, attrition's a big deal. And that's why I have not been moving very much during the winter. We would have lost even more guys if I'd been moving around the way that the Confederates have been doing. And this is, let me just harp on that a little bit longer. That's a trailing 3-month number. So over the past 3 months, so that would be during January, February, March, basically, we've lost 30,000 to attrition that have not been made up. So that alone, we would be sitting at 230,000 right now in any previous version of the game. At least 230,000. I think it would be a lot more than that. Okay, so all that army organization took quite a while, and this is turning into a longer episode. However, folks got fair warning and were offered to skip ahead. For For those who did not watch all that, it really hasn't been all that long. So let's go ahead and run the campaign map for a while, at least until probably a battle pops or so. Definitely not going to fight a battle in this episode. I would imagine that the way things have been going, Johnny Reb is going to oblige us pretty soon. So let's go. Okay, these are forces retreating from the most recent Confederate defeat at Nashville. And the Missouri State Guard is moving down away from Fort Hyman as well. 7th Corps moving down the river. This is under the command of, I think, Samuel Curtis now. Is that who I put in command here? Oh, Fort Beauregard besieged. Well, we can't have that. Let's see. Fort Beauregard is besieged by Polk's command with the Cav in support. How's that looking for us? It's okay. It's not looking that great. I don't think I'm a huge fan of getting... we've got the Army of the Tennessee right here. I don't think I like the idea of getting them embroiled in this siege. We certainly don't want to leave it the way it is. I think we've got to get involved, and I think the thing to do is go ahead and get at least... How many men are in Polk's command? It says 15,000 here. Oh, yeah, he's got a lot of cav, that's why. Yeah, that is almost 15,000 then. At the beginning of the episode, I was talking about forts having intrinsic artillery. Maybe not. This was a player-built fort. Maybe player-built forts do not come with their own automatic artillery, because this only shows 3 guns. And that's with this little first battery. I didn't give unique names to fort garrisons. So that's only this battery, which is probably just 6-pound field guns. So there's a little bit of a lesson learned there. I said earlier you don't need to put artillery in a fort, and that's true as long as the fort existed at the start of the campaign. If you build a fort, yeah, I guess you need to put some artillery in it. Or, which I did, just should have put more than I did. Okay, well, let's get the Army of the Tennessee involved here. The 5th Corps isn't fully stood up yet because some of these forces are coming down from Louisville. So let's get 4th Corps under Joe Hooker. And let's march him in and get him involved into this siege. And actually, let's get the Army HQ unit, which is just Grant and his staff. He doesn't have any direct units under his command anymore. Let's make sure that Grant is actually shown involved in this siege as well, his HQ, so that he appears on the field. what I intend to do is come down here and then convert this into a tactical battle, which I will be able to do because the 4th Corps is an offensive stance. If I moved him there in defensive stance, I'm not sure I would have that option, if I understand how that works. Okay, McClellan's HQ, Army of the Mississippi, has arrived at Cairo. And as soon as 7th Corps arrives, I believe McClellan will be able to come back down this way and start working on these forts again, since Confederate forces field forces have moved out of this area. Oh, here comes the Missouri State Guard. Grant is involved in the siege. 4th Corps isn't yet. Now he is. Okay, now let's see how this siege is going. Heavily in our favor now. We do have the assault option. If I just let the siege go, that would wind up in our favor. I think that that's a viable thing to do. The thing is, I don't want the Missouri State Guard coming over here and becoming involved in the battle. I'm not entirely sure that that is what he is going to do. No. We're building a supply depot here. So the Missouri State Guard may stay put. May. Nope, they're moving. Or not. Basically, I'm waiting to see what happens because I don't want to convert to a tactical battle unless I have to. And have to is Missouri State Guard continuing to get closer. Otherwise, I'd be happy with leaving the siege to resolve because I think overall that will mean less casualties for us. Okay, Army of the Mississippi is pretty much put together now. 7th Corps lost a little bit of readiness coming down the river, but let's go ahead and get these guys. Let's have 7th Corps march overland. Then I'm going to let 6th Corps will march overland. 7th Corps, we'll just let him regain readiness just for a bit. Oh, he's got perk. Ambulance Corps. Let him recover a little bit of readiness, and then I'll put him on the river to come down and join that siege at Fort Henry. And meanwhile, I can move the Army HQ under McClellan. We'll move him down this way as well. Okay, it is April 1st. So now that we are no longer in winter conditions, and oh, there is an army here. So the Missouri State Guard beat feet and headed over to Tennessee. However, they were replaced by the Army of the West. This is a March 31st location report, so it's pretty current. And there are 6,000 men here now, 11,000 projected. Army of the Missouri's got about 11,000 men. Option 1. Send a couple more brigades and plus up the size of this army before sending it into Arkansas. Option 2. There's 6,000 men here now, estimated. That's an estimate. Even if troops get there, it's still just going to be 11,000 men. Lyon's got 11,000 men now. So option 2 is go now. I think I'm going to go now. 8th Corps, James Stephen. Major General James Stephen. Is he actually outranking Lyon? It's possible. Let's go to Carrollton. No, Lyon's a Major General too. Okay. Let's move him down as well. Get a city, get a supply depot here, and this will be a fine place from which to move on Fort Smith. I am going to need to send Lyon some artillery at that point, since he'll be besieging a fort. Sherman's Corps is at orange readiness because he's got all those troops coming from the West Department, but they shouldn't take very long because they're just coming from Louisville. Oh, I think they just showed up. Yeah, Sherman's Corps is now all arrived. So he should be coming up in readiness pretty quickly now. Continuing to go in our favor at Fort Beauregard. Even though we're losing, well, you know, I said it would be less casualties. We've taken 3,000 losses. All right. Well, that plan didn't work out. Another rebel unit routed. Almost done. Come on, Curtis. You know what? It's close enough. Let's go ahead and get... let's move Curtis to here. What is that? Fort Webb? Where the heck is Fort Webb? I think that must be the force at Winchester. Or the fort at Winchester. Yes. Okay. Right. Well, as we learned before, cannot take for granted that there's any artillery here. There is a generic 50-man garrison, but I don't think that there's any intrinsic artillery. So first thing, let's get a nice political officer in here who will still be better than Major Wright. And this is a somewhat important fort. Ferry. Connecticut. Burke. Missouri. Let's go with Burke. And do we have any... Yeah, we got a lot of forces here to... let's send an infantry brigade. And an artillery unit to Fort Webb. It's doing that because the click goes through the panel behind it. So I click on the unit and it's also clicking on the... That's why sometimes you see me kind of go out to sea or something for this sort of thing. I'm just going to call this Fort Webb Brigade. Give them Springfield muskets. I don't think I want to give them rifled guns there, but I definitely want them to have something better than 6-pound field guns. How about... well, it's either rifled artillery or... let's give them 24-pound howitzers. Okay, almost there. I should have just gone with my initial instinct on the tactical battle. We're taking more casualties this way, but we're so close to winning it, I don't feel like going into a tactical battle now. Here comes 7th Corps, coming up the Ohio, past Paducah, now moving up the Tennessee, on their way to Fort Henry. Let's get 6th Corps across the river. And there we go. Alright, we've got both of those corps. We've got the entire Army of Mississippi on Fort Henry now. That's got to be in our favor, right? Yeah, heavily in our favor. Remember, Stevens has got the siege warfare perk. Okay, Polk's command has been beaten back at Fort Beauregard. We lost 3,500 men. That's bad news. Captured 800 weapons and almost 700 more rebel prisoners. Going to, I think it's called Camp Chase, right? Where is our POW camp? Here it is. Camp Chase at Columbus, Ohio. Get over 16,000 men there now, prisoners. And the camp has got a 1,000 prisoner capacity. That's okay. That's a pretty big number. That's starting to mount up. I do not want to release all these guys back to the Confederate manpower pool. Now, surely by now, that's got to be having a pretty serious positive impact from the Confederacy's perspective to their state support. Yeah, wrong tab. Oh. If you look at the state support, it's 86 for us, it's 87 for them. You know, if this were like 96 or something, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know if this POW camp's such a hot idea. But that doesn't look terrible. Now, how much lower would this number be if we didn't have all those prisoners? I don't know. I doubt very seriously that it would be any lower than maybe in the low 80s. Perhaps 83, 84-ish. I think I'm just going to let it continue to overcrowd. I don't know specifically how much that state support thing is hurting us, but I suspect it's not enormous. I do not feel compelled to parole 16,000 men. So I'm going to keep doing that. Cadwallader still working on the supply depot here. Okay, what's our readiness situation here? 4th and 5th Corps are both at orange readiness following that siege, and so is the Cav Corps. So, yeah, I've said it a couple times already. I shouldn't have done it that way. I should have gone straight into the tactical battle. Lesson learned. In the next episode, we'll start moving, we'll see what happens over here. Well, what is happening over here? Looks like the Army of the West retreated, probably to Fort Smith, and the Army of the Missouri is now capturing Carrollton, Arkansas. Let's go ahead and let that finish out. Okay, Carrollton is now a Union-controlled city. And wait a minute. Okay, so this doesn't mean that the Confederates marched around us. When Lyon moved south, he moved far enough away that he no longer exerted control over Springfield. Carrollton was still rebel. Just the proximity and these named cities exert control around them on the IIPs. And since there wasn't an army here and Carrollton was still rebel, these turned back rebel once Lyon moved away. Now that Carrollton is Union controlled, now it's exerting proper Union control again at Springfield. Okay, so then the next question is, what is this? Oh, there's a newly formed Army of Arkansas in response to us moving into Arkansas, as I thought there might be. That does beg the question, what happened to the Army of the West? Where did they go? I think they probably came here too. Well, that's going to have to wait for the next episode. If you like what we're doing with the channel, if you like this content, then leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe. If you're new to the series, new to the channel, and would like to see some of the other episodes in this series that you may not have caught yet, I'm linking the playlist here. At any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.